Today's reading begins in Ezekiel chapter 40, starting in verse 28. Then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate. He measured the south gate according to these measurements, with its lodges, its posts, and its arches, according to these measurements. There were windows in it, and in its arches all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. There were arches all around, 25 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. Its arches were towards the outer court. Palm trees were on its posts. The ascent to it had 8 steps. He brought me into the inner court towards the east. He measured the gate according to these measurements, with its lodges, its posts, and its arches, according to these measurements. There were windows in it, and in its arches all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its arches were towards the outer court. Palm trees were on its posts, on this side and on that side. The ascent to it had 8 steps. He brought me to the north gate, and he measured it according to these measurements, its lodges, its posts, and its arches. There were windows in it all around. The length was 50 cubits, and the width 25 cubits. Its posts were towards the outer court. Palm trees were on its posts on this side and on that side. The ascent to it had 8 steps. A room with its door was by the posts at the gates. They washed the burnt offering there. In the porch of the gate were 2 tables on this side and 2 tables on that side, on which to kill the burnt offering, the sin offering, and the trespass offering. On the one side outside, as one goes up to the entry of the gate towards the north, were 2 tables, and on the other side, which belonged to the porch of the gate, were 2 tables. 4 tables were on this side and 4 tables on that side, by the side of the gate, 8 tables, on which they killed the sacrifices. There were 4 cut stone tables for the burnt offering, 1.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1 cubit high. They laid the instruments with which they killed the burnt offering and the sacrifice on them. The hooks, a hand-width long, were fastened within all around. The meat of the offering was on the tables. Outside of the inner gate were rooms for the singers in the inner court, which was at the side of the north gate. They faced towards the south. One at the side of the east gate faced towards the north. He said to me, "This room, which faces towards the south, is for the priests who perform the duty of the house. The room which faces towards the north is for the priests who perform the duty of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, who from amongst the sons of Levi come near to the Lord to minister to him." He measured the court, 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, square. The altar was before the house. Then he brought me to the porch of the house, and measured each post of the porch, 5 cubits on this side, and 5 cubits on that side. The width of the gate was 3 cubits on this side, and 3 cubits on that side. The length of the porch was 20 cubits, and the width 11 cubits, even by the steps by which they went up to it. There were pillars by the posts, one on this side, and another on that side. He brought me to the nave and measured the posts, 6 cubits wide on the one side and 6 cubits wide on the other side, which was the width of the tent. The width of the entrance was 10 cubits, and the sides of the entrance were 5 cubits on the one side and 5 cubits on the other side. He measured its length, 40 cubits, and the width, 20 cubits. Then he went inward and measured each post of the entrance, 2 cubits, and the entrance, 6 cubits, and the width of the entrance, 7 cubits. He measured its length, 20 cubits, and the width, 20 cubits, before the nave. He said to me, "This is the most holy place." Then he measured the wall of the house, 6 cubits, and the width of every side room, 4 cubits, all around the house on every side. The side rooms were in 3 stories, one over another, and 30 in each story. They entered into the wall which belonged to the house for the side rooms all around, that they might be supported and not penetrate the wall of the house. The side rooms were wider on the higher levels, because the walls were narrower at the higher levels. Therefore the width of the house increased upward, and so one went up from the lowest level to the highest level through the middle level. I saw also that the house had a raised base all around. The foundations of the side rooms were a full reed of 6 great cubits. The thickness of the outer wall of the side rooms was 5 cubits. That which was left was the place of the side rooms that belonged to the house. Between the rooms was a width of 20 cubits around the house on every side. The doors of the side rooms were towards an open area that was left, one door towards the north and another door towards the south. The width of the open area was 5 cubits all around. The building that was before the separate place at the side towards the west was 70 cubits wide, and the wall of the building was 5 cubits thick all around, and its length 90 cubits. So he measured the temple, 100 cubits long, and the separate place, and the building with its walls, 100 cubits long, also the width of the face of the temple, and of the separate place towards the east, 100 cubits. He measured the length of the building before the separate place which was at its back, and its galleries on the one side and on the other side, 100 cubits from the inner temple, and the porches of the court, the thresholds, and the closed windows, and the galleries around on their 3 stories, opposite the threshold, with wood ceilings all around, and from the ground up to the windows, now the windows were covered, to the space above the door, even to the inner house, and outside, and by all the wall all around, inside and outside, by measure. It was made with cherubim and palm trees. A palm tree was between cherub, and every cherub had 2 faces, so that there was a face of a man towards the palm tree on the one side, and the face of a young lion towards the palm tree on the other side. It was made like this through all the house all around. Cherubim and palm trees were made from the ground to above the door. The wall of the temple was like this. The doorposts of the nave were squared. As for the face of the nave, its appearance was as the appearance of the temple. The altar was of wood, 3 cubits high, and its length 2 cubits. Its corners, its base, and its walls were of wood. He said to me, "This is the table that is before the Lord." The temple and the sanctuary had 2 doors. The doors had 2 leaves each, 2 turning leaves, 2 for the one door and 2 leaves for the other. They were made on them, on the doors of the nave, cherubim and palm trees, like those made on the walls. There was a threshold of wood on the face of the porch outside. There were closed windows and palm trees on the one side and on the other side, on the sides of the porch. This is how the side rooms of the temple and the thresholds were arranged. The letter of James, chapter 4, beginning in verse 1. Where do wars and fightings amongst you come from? Don't they come from your pleasures that war in your members? You lust and don't have. You murder and covet and can't obtain. You fight and make war. You don't have because you don't ask. You ask and don't receive because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures. You adulterers and adulteresses, don't you know that friendship with the world is hostility towards God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you think that the Scripture says in vain, the Spirit who lives in us yearns jealously? But he gives more grace. Therefore it says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Be subject therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Lament, mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will exalt you. Don't speak against one another, brothers. He who speaks against a brother and judges his brother speaks against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. Only one is the lawgiver, who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge another? Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow, let's go into this city and spend a year there, trade and make a profit. Yet you don't know what your life will be like tomorrow. For what is your life? For you are a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. For you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will both live and do this or that. But now you glory in your boasting. All such boasting is evil. To him therefore who knows to do good and doesn't do it, to him it is sin. Psalm 118, beginning in verse 19. Open to me the gates of righteousness. I will enter into them. I will give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord. The righteous will enter into it. I will give thanks to you, for you have answered me, and have become my salvation. The stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Save us now, we beg you, Lord. Lord, we beg you, send prosperity now. Blessed is he who comes in the Lord's name. We have blessed you out of the Lord's house. The Lord is God, and he has given us light. Bind the sacrifice with cords, even to the horns of the altar. You are my God, and I will give thanks to you. You are my God, I will exalt you. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his loving kindness endures forever. Proverbs chapter 28, beginning in verse 3. A needy man who oppresses the poor is like a driving rain which leaves no crops. Those who forsake the law praise the wicked, but those who keep the law contend with them. Evil men don't understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand it fully.